Okay, welcome. This is Samira Darkley, Unbridled Inquiry. This is Robin. I'm Ruth. Here's Oreo, our co-host. And hopefully he calms down soon. He just had a little barking fit. And somebody came in that he wasn't expecting and had to protect me from all the evil in the world that exists, even though the person who came in does not represent even one fraction of the evil in the world. He's just a friend. That startled Oreo.
Yes.
So anyway, so today we're talking about red pill or blue pill. Funny story. I thought when somebody said they've been red pilled, it was a Republican or Democrat thing. And because I didn't watch all of The Matrix, I found it upsetting and I couldn't watch it because of where I was in my life. And I doubt if I'm ever going to really watch the movie. I talked about possibly watching it this week. This week was crazy busy, so it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we should be here next Saturday, but I want to give you a heads up that the following Saturday, November 13th, we will not be here because our daughter is getting married. He's officiating.
The oldest daughter.
So, yes, our oldest daughter is getting married. So we will not be here that day, and just so that you are aware. But anyway, so the show is run in 10-minute segments. So if you have a comment or a question, please put it in the comment area of Facebook or YouTube, however you're watching this, and we will get to it at the end of the 10-minute segment. Okay, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, The Matrix, the movie came out in 1999, and it was a godsend for anybody that's ever taught philosophy, because trying to explain Rene Descartes' concept of I think, therefore I am, and his thought experiment regarding some mad scientist or demon that keeps our brains locked up in a vat and inputs stimulus to our various sense organs. We'd really have no way of knowing whether or not that's the case. And of course, with the movie The Matrix, that's made real. That is, you get to see portrayed on the screen that kind of a world that Rene Descartes imagined. And so it makes it a lot easier now to discuss Rene Descartes' ideas because at least most people have seen the movie. But
I watched part of it, and then I laid down, put my head on his lap, and proceeded to go to sleep
yes.
because I couldn't watch.
Yeah, well, it's because of the one scene with the baby, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we had just recently lost our foster son.
Yes.
So it was just a little bit difficult for Ruth.
And don't know if I want to try to experience it to see if my feelings have changed. So
yeah, it's probably not worth
I'll
it.
take people's word for it.
And so the terms red pill and blue pill refer to the choice between the willingness to learn a potentially unsettling or life-changing truth by taking the red pill or remaining in contented ignorance with the blue pill. And this is from an early scene in the movie The Matrix. Because in the universe of The Matrix, human beings are used essentially as batteries by an artificial intelligence. And the option of taking the red pill or blue pill is whether or not you want to remain in the dream world that's been created by the AI to keep humanity pacified, or do you want to find out what reality actually is and that you're enslaved and make some attempt to try to change that.
I'm listening. I'm just sharing because I didn't get a chance to do that, and this computer's being uber slow.
Yes.
So
In The Matrix, the main character Neo is offered a choice between a red pill and a blue pill by the rebel leader Morpheus. The red pill represents an uncertain future. It would free him from the enslaving control of the machine-generated dream world and allow him to escape into the real world. But living the truth of reality is far harsher and more difficult than continuing to live in the pleasant dream world.
he's having a lot of asthma
Excuse
issues.
me. Created by the AI. The blue pill represents a beautiful prison, it would lead him back into ignorance if he were to take the blue pill, and he would live in a confined comfort without want or fear within the simulated reality of the Matrix. As described by Morpheus, you take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Neo, of course, chooses the red pill, and hence the whole movie then, and its sequels. And there's another sequel coming out.
Sip your coffee, please.
And so the question that arises as you contemplate the movie is wondering whether or not you would choose the red pill or not. Mm-hmm. That is, do you prefer uncomfortable reality, or would you rather believe sweet little lies, as it were? Which is preferable? How many people really want to know some unsettling truth when it's much more comfortable not to know the truth? It's like the line from, what was the movie? You Can't Handle the Truth.
Oh, A Few Good Men?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that the reality that we experience is sweet little lies. There are plenty of challenges in this reality we're in.
Yeah.
So
But I'm just wondering whether or not people prefer to remain ignorant of certain things, just so that they don't have to be faced with uncomfortable stuff.
Well, there are people that don't watch the news because it stresses them out.
Right.
And I know I'll go on news diets. I'm a huge fan of news. I've watched news. My parents had the news on all the time. And I've watched news in some form or other pretty much my whole life, like for my own consumption, since like my early teenage years even. I used to watch CBS Sunday Morning on Sunday mornings when I was getting ready for work or for church. And, my parents used to watch 60 Minutes. We'd watch it with them usually, kind of news magazine kind of things. And I was a huge fan of 2020 and all that. I liked CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. Then he got in trouble. And then I kept watching CBS Evening News with Brian, what's his name? He's on MSNBC now.
Brian Williams.
Brian Williams. He got in trouble. And then I was watching it with Lester Holt there for a while. But then I've kind of given up national news.
Yeah, well, one of the problems, and it's illustrated by the downfall of those two particular newscasters, is how reliable is the information that we're being given anyway.
Right.
And we've talked about this before, the importance of doing proper research. And again, this is kind of a red pill, blue pill thing. Do you prefer to I'll just accept whatever is being said and not worry about it? Or do you want to find out, is this actually the case or not?
Right.
And one of the ways, a simple way to find out whether or not something is actually real is to see if what's being presented in different ideological presentations, if it's the same information. If it's the same, then you have some sense that this is probably the way things actually are. But if, say, MSNBC and CNN and Fox News present the information in entirely radically different ways, then you know that the information is not reliable. Now, it's not saying it could be all three of them are messing up, which is not uncommon, quite frankly. One of the problems with ideological bias is that oftentimes people are unaware that they are biased. They think that they are objective, and to beat a dead horse, and he's actually dead, and now his name just went out of my head, The Economist, or pretended to be an economist, Larry Burkett.
Oh, okay.
And his coming economic earthquake. That was an ideologically driven book. and all his sources were from one point of view. And he was unaware of the fact that he had done that. It's not that he didn't he probably would have cared, at least at some point, as he was starting out. Once the book was published, though, he's pretty locked into that system because he did not respond favorably to my letter pointing out the factual errors in the book. So, although the second edition removed all those errors, which made for a much shorter book that didn't really have the same impact or point the first one had. But that's
Kind
the
of
problem.
like taking the F words out of certain movies. It's
Yeah,
like,
there's nothing
now
left.
our movie's starting, the end.
Yes.
Well, I just had an experience with a friend who has started a group about the whole vaccine mandate issue. And I haven't joined the group, but occasionally I will see stuff that they've put in the group, and they just had a thing about on Monday this week, a particular middle school down below is going to be force vaccinating children and without parent consent. And so our kids can't even use saline solution at school, in middle school too, without a doctor's note. And the school nurse or the health clerk, the district nurse, can't administer any aspirin. I remember when I was a kid, if you needed an aspirin, they would give you one. They'd give you a cough drop if you needed one. You could carry your own cough drops. And
Not anymore.
no, and well, yeah, I went to school back east too, so it could be a difference of that. But in California, no. Kids aren't allowed to carry saline solution. They can have chapstick, but any kind of medication is taken away from them. And I think it's a good idea because they share things. They don't know what it does and who's allergic to what. But anyway, so it went against what I know to be true about how medication, like I got in trouble when my middle school daughter, I sent her to school with medication that was prescribed to her because I thought middle schoolers could carry their own medication. And
Turned out they can't.
yeah, and so the health clerk at the school took it away from her and called me. And I said, oh, that was my mistake because I didn't want her to be in trouble. I mean, it was my mistake. It wasn't her. But I didn't want her to get in trouble. And she said, well, if it happens again, she'll be in really big trouble. She could get kicked out of school for it even because it was actual medication.
Right.
So actually, no, I take that back. She was transporting it to the nurse for the nurse to hold, not for her to give to herself, because I thought they were allowed to do that in middle school. They are not. The parent has to bring it in with the proper district form filled out by a doctor.
Yeah.
So even in middle school, that's the case. So knowing state law, like I do, I thought this can't be real. So I looked it up. There's nothing about this going on Monday at this particular school, but LA Unified did have vaccines available in May to students who were 12 and older, but they had to have a parent present for the vaccination. And then for high school students, if you were 17 or 18, you have to have a note from your parent. But under 17, all the way down to 12, you had to have a parent present for that. All they were doing was providing a vaccination clinic.
Right.
And what I did was I told my friend, I said, this is fake news. Your cause would be better served to make sure that what you're putting up is factual and accurate. I posted a link to the site that I found that contradicted what she put, and it was a national news site, which I still take with a grain of salt because they do have their
Point of
view and their personal crusades, right? And so, but then I quoted the part underneath about the students needing a note or needing a parent present. It wasn't that it didn't happen, and it was way back in May. It's not that it didn't happen, it's that not the way they were saying and not to the level that they were saying.
Yeah. And of course, it's weird anyway, the upset over mandating that children be vaccinated for this, because there's a whole slew of things that you have to be vaccinated for in order to go to school.
Right.
So this is just one more thing. Big deal.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. It's very
Well,
puzzling.
people are scared of the new technology, and
Yeah, we've had episodes on that.
they feel like
They don't understand it. It's scary.
right, and they feel like there's long-term data on like long-term side effects of the vaccines we had when we were kids, but there isn't data like that.
No, nobody keeps that kind
Right,
of
and the
information.
VAERS database is just, okay, I got the shot, now I have a cold, so somebody reported it to the VAERS database.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that there's a cause and effect
Right.
relationship. It's like you get hit by a bus after taking the
Right.
vaccine. Probably had nothing to do with it.
Well, I got the flu vaccine, and within a couple of days, I was sick. Not with the flu. I mean, it was an upper respiratory infection, but it was a simple cold. That's all it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's part of my problem now is that
He
I
has
got
a cold, and it's got his asthma
all
on
of
high
that.
alert.
Yeah, it's all messed up.
So, but you know, because you can't get sick from the flu vaccine.
Right.
It's not live
It's not
virus.
possible.
I happened to already be developing this cold, and within a couple of days of getting the flu shot, I was sick. But it had nothing to do with having gotten the flu shot.
But people are afraid of or don't like reality that contradicts their preferred belief system.
Right.
It is they prefer to believe these things, and anything that challenges that is uncomfortable. And yet, the greatest advances in engineering, technology, science are all a consequence of finding something that didn't fit what we already thought we knew. One of the great challenges with modern physics is trying to figure out, because we know that the standard model isn't right, because it doesn't, that is, quantum physics works really well within its realm, relativistic physics works really well in its realm, they're not compatible. So there's something wrong. But all the experiments up to this point always work out in the standard model's favor, which is deeply frustrating. Scientists would love to find something that doesn't fit what they already believe. But for most people in their day-to-day life, we really don't want the red pill, it seems a lot of the times. We'd prefer to just keep going along the way we're going.
Well, and the Bible says that a man does what seems right in his own eyes.
Yeah.
So if I'm right, why would I want to find out I'm wrong?
Yeah. And of course, you know, we have the cliche, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But, you know, again, taking the analogy of the standard model, we know it's broke, so it needs to be fixed. And there are other things in life that, you know, we know they don't work the way they're supposed to, or not as well as they could. Higher education is a mess because it's very, very expensive. Part of the reason for the expense is because of doing something that seemed like a good idea at the time, excuse me, which was allowing the student loan system. The problem is, though, then you have an unlimited supply of funds coming into the system, and so the prices of everything keep going up because the universities could keep finding new ways of spending the money. And the cost of textbooks has skyrocketed too because it doesn't matter. You take out a student loan, you have the money to take care of these things.
It's unintended
consequences happen a lot. And one of the harder things for human beings to do is when you get the unintended consequences, when you start seeing the problems, to think, okay, we need to do something to try to fix this. Because even when it's broken, we don't necessarily want to fix it. Because there are a lot of aspects of the system that we like. And so if we fixed it, then we might get rid of, it might be other unintended consequences, and we lose things that we like. Healthcare is the same problem. The current mishmash is really not the best system, but it's what we've got. And people keep kind of fiddling along with the edges, but it hasn't really improved things significantly. What they call Obamacare, the unintended consequence was that the cost of our insurance went up considerably. That was not what was supposed to happen.
And prescription prices went up, everything went up, because you have government money behind it, and it's very
kind of an
deep
unlimited,
pockets.
yeah, it's kind of an unlimited amount of money. And so people take advantage of that.
But what
Human nature being what it is.
But doctors are being paid less, and so they're getting rid of staff. Our doctor that we had at the time, he had a PA and he had a nurse practitioner, and he laid both of them off, so it was just him. He went to where he only works every other Friday, and then he has like these really funky short hours. On Wednesday, he comes in the afternoon and he's there into the evening so that he can serve people that work during the day that can't come in during the day. But it was super hard to get a hold of his office, to get anything done, because he had these really weird hours because of the what was it called? The Unaffordable Care Act.
Yeah.
So
that was not its intention.
Right.
And this is the thing that's so hard for us sometimes to wrap our heads around. That is, the best intentioned things can sometimes really make a mess. One that is personally affects us is mental health. That is, we have our youngest daughter suffers from severe mental illness, and thankfully she is takes her medication and is stabilized. But for a lot of people, getting a mentally ill person to take the medication is very, very difficult. Well, back in the 60s through 70s, they revamped the mental health care system. One of the things they did is they got rid of the large mental health institutions because they were a mess. That is, the care in the facilities was not very good. A lot of the times it was just, dope the people up with Thorazine, and they sit in a corner and they don't bother you then.
And people were there that didn't belong there, like children with autism.
Right.
And, rich Aunt so-and-so, who the family wanted all of her money.
Yes. And so there were a lot of abuses, a lot of really bad things. And so it was a well-intentioned reform movement to get rid of that and then to replace it with
community services.
Yes.
And the money was supposed to go there to the community
services.
Money?
Excuse me. Money that had been going to the big institutions would now go to these small local community places. Unfortunately,
the money was rerouted.
Yeah, government being what it is, the legislature saw, oh, now we've got all this money, and it disappeared into other things. And so the rising homeless crisis, to a large extent, is a consequence of this well-intentioned movement.
Now our jails and prisons are packed full of people who would have been in mental institutions back in the day.
Right. So. And one can't really say that being in prison is an improvement over the old mental hospitals. Not that the mental hospitals are very
drink your coffee, please.
Nice either.
I'm kind of thinking we probably should take today off because you're coughing
No,
so
I'll
much.
be fine. I'm not coughing an enormous amount.
I know, it's hard to follow you because you keep...
Yeah, well, it's the nature of
being sick,
so.
But I was going back to the news thing I was talking about, because I had said I was watching CBS Evening News, even though all these people were dropping off because of issues that they had. So I was very loyal to the show because I felt like, well, if the person does something they shouldn't, they'll get rid of them and replace them. So I was happy with that. And same thing happened with the Today Show. Matt Lauer was gotten rid of over the sexual harassment things. So I was comfortable staying with it. My problem now is, and the reason why I don't watch it, is because Savannah Guthrie went after those Covington kids. And once the the reality of what had happened was revealed, there was no apology. She did not lose her job. Nothing. That kid is having to sue every single news outlet and is making big bucks because they lied about him. And he's personally suing a lot of the news anchors, especially Savannah Guthrie, who went after him. And I always liked her. She was very, very smart. She's from Arizona. So I was really pro Savannah Guthrie. I can't watch the Today Show because she's still there. I don't trust what she says because when the truth, I mean, I get if you get wrong information.
Right.
Because
That
the
happens.
video was edited to where it really did look like that he was being disrespectful to that Native American man. But if you watch the entire thing and you watch it from different perspectives of the way of different people
changes.
filming, changes it completely. And those Covington kids were actually the victims. They were not the perpetrators. But the major news media didn't want to take responsibility for that, so they just go on their merry way. So I really have issues with that.
And it's not an uncommon problem. That is part of what happens with television news particularly, but it also happens with printed news, is that you want to be first in getting information out. There are advantages to you as a brand. And also, the more sensational the story is, the more interesting it is to your viewership. Again, it increases your ratings and you get more people watching.
But when you find out the truth, you are supposed to, and not bury it in the last 5 minutes of the third hour of the
Yes,
show.
but people being people, they're embarrassed. They don't want to, because that can hurt the brand and you lose viewership.
And actually, I think it improves the brand. I think it
so
hurts
too,
it
but
more
that's
to
what
keep the
they're
lie
thinking.
going, right?
I think that's what they're thinking, though, is they're afraid they're going to lose viewership, that it's going to harm their reputation. I mean, it's the reason that organizations will try to cover up bad things that go on. As you see a lot of organizations say they have sexual harassment or some other problems going on in their organization, they discover it, their first thought too often is, let's bury it. And that's worked out so well for all these organizations, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But that's human nature.
Right. The better thing is to be open and honest, admit you messed up, and we're going to do better going forward.
Yeah,
And
we'll try better next time. Because being human beings, we're going to regularly make mistakes. And we might as well just accept, okay, there's a good chance that what I have reported, what I have said, may not be entirely accurate. But as of this moment, this is what we think is happening.
And you see that with developing stories. You know, you've
Yes.
got somebody embedded with in a battle, or you've got somebody reporting on a riot or something like that.
Well, you can see how the story changes over time
Right.
as more information comes out.
Right. And because it's a developing story. But when you and here's the thing, it's investigative journalism needs to be happening, and that's not happening so much anymore. It's
Because
whatever
most-
the video shows.
Yeah, well, because most people, I mean, going back to Larry Burkett and his stupid book, he did not know how to do research. Most people don't know how to do research. The sad reality is that an awful lot of people in the news business don't know how to do research either. And you see the results of that on a regular basis. They don't understand the importance of skepticism, of being just as skeptical of what fits what you believe as you would be of things that attack what you believe. That is, when somebody attacks your beliefs, you're right ready to question what's being said. But if somebody is saying something that supports what you believe, human nature is to just swallow and say, ah, yes, that tastes very good. I'm glad that you said that.
Yeah.
And
Glad you
that's-
noticed how smart and wonderful I am.
Yeah, and see, that's a huge mistake. And it's a very difficult thing to develop that level of skepticism so that you react the same way to news that supports what you believe as you would to news that attacks what you believe. But that's the beauty of, say, the scientific method, because that's precisely what you do. That is, you want to try to break or disprove the theory. Excuse
Take a
me.
drink of your coffee.
Well,
So, one of the things to notice when you're looking at something, if it matches exactly what you believe, then see if you can find something that contradicts it, and look at the reliability of the source. It's called a little too on the nose. If it hits the nail on the head perfectly,
it's probably not correct.
right. But there
well,
was
like your friend with the story, because they are uncomfortable with the concept of the mandate, and so here's a story where the evil
Exactly
school
what they
district is
fear,
doing
right.
something bad, and
So, okay, here's another example, but where being a little too on the nose actually ended up being true, and that was the male wearing a skirt in the girls' bathroom, and violated a girl in the bathroom. That was one of my contentions with allowing trans people into the bathroom that they're most comfortable with in a public restroom setting. If you want to use the individual, like the family restrooms, that's fine. I don't care. In Europe, they're all like that. They're all individual stalls, locking doors, and all that. But
which I would expect eventually that's the way we'll go.
But we're not set up that way, and especially in schools. And this was my concern, was really at school. Because if I'm in the grocery store, I can just leave if someone is in the bathroom that makes me feel uncomfortable. Whether it's a male, whether it's a female, whatever. I've had moms bring their 10-year-old, 11-year-old boys in the bathroom, and they peek in the crack. And I'm really uncomfortable with that. So I'll leave a bathroom if there's a big boy in there. And, because the mom's worried he's going to go in the boys' bathroom and get raped. And so she takes him in with him. The problem is she doesn't think about the fact that little boys are curious, and they try to see what the ladies look like on the toilet.
Yes.
So
Human nature, yeah.
Right, I've left the bathroom because of that. But in school, that is the most dangerous place for a child in any school, because adults are not patrolling the restrooms, because then the adults get called child molesters. You can't put cameras in there. We don't have cameras in our schools anyway, but you can't put cameras in there. Children are real, and they're in their most vulnerable position. Part of their clothing is off. They're exposed. They're sitting on the toilet or standing in front of the urinal, and even though the door is locked, kids can see under. Kids climb over and peek over the top all the time. They swing from the things because they're little kids. They do stuff like that.
The solution to the problem is to redesign how we do bathrooms in public bathrooms.
But the story was a little too on the nose. And it was something, when I heard it, I was like, see? And then I thought, wait a minute. But that was my big concern, that a boy would say he was a girl so that he could go in the girls' bathroom and bother the girls. Not necessarily for some sexually deviant behavior, but just to
teenage boys
peek,
by their nature
are sexually deviant.
But anyway.
But to peek or to see something that, kind of like a little live porn kind of thing. But because they're human. And that was my biggest concern, because I know how scary the bathrooms are for kids. And, but then, turns out it was true. That it was a male in a skirt in the ladies' room was it a high school or?
I think it was a high school.
Yeah, and violate this girl.
Yeah, although I had heard that they had a previous relationship, so it's a little bit more complicated.
Okay, but still. So, and then there's question: was he really transgender? Was he gender fluid, or was he making it up? And then someone I was listening to posed this question: well, why is a gender fluid person allowed in the girls' bathroom? Well, you don't know if they're wearing a skirt. You don't know if they're gender fluid or if they're transgender. And are you going to ask them? I mean, pretty much, if you're self-identifying as a girl and you're allowed to go in the girls' bathroom, I guess it's okay regardless. And that's a scary thing. And especially when you're a little kid, like a third grader or fourth grader, a middle schooler, it's a very scary thing. But that's an example of a story that seemed a little too on the nose, but it was actually true. But even though there's more nuance to it than that, but still. So
It's just a mess.
just because it seems a little too on the nose doesn't make it automatically wrong.
Yes, but you should be especially skeptical of
Right.
things that are on the nose.
Like, wow, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Let's wait
Let's
and find
wait
out.
and find out.
And let's watch the full. Oh, here's the other thing too, is I watch the actual news conferences. I don't watch the news cover. I will see the news coverage of it. Like Jen Psaki said today, yada yada yada.
C-SPAN is a wonderful thing where you can actually see the actual
What a
stuff.
snooze fest, though.
Yes.
But you can also watch press conferences, like whitehouse.gov has all the press conferences. You can watch the whole thing from beginning to end.
Right.
And there's no commentary. You just watch the questions, you watch the answers, all that. And so I do that a lot because I don't trust the news to give me the straight scoop.
Right. But see, this is why people are reluctant to take the red pill, because the red pill is the more difficult path. A poem that I like to quote on a regular basis is by Stephen Crane, who's better known for writing Red Badge of Courage. He also wrote a lot of poetry, and one of his poems is called The Wayfarer. And the wayfarer comes upon the road to truth, and he notices that nobody has gone this way for a long time. And then he notices that all the blades of grass that are growing there are singular knives, so he decides to go a different way. Because the truth is often very painful. The red pill is not the comfortable way to go. And if you emphasize your desire to find out what reality is, you are choosing the more difficult route, because you're going to have to work hard to find out what reality is. It's not clear and clear and obvious.
We tend to root for our own team.
Yes, UCLA,
Yeah. But
which is covered up by the banner, so you can't see. I've got a UCLA sweatshirt on.
But we tend to root for our own team. So anything anybody says on our team tends to be right and correct.
Yes.
And whatever they say on the other team
Particularly
is
if it's
wrong
USC.
and fascist and all that. And I'm not talking about actual teams. I'm talking about like political parties.
Oh, political parties, yes.
So anyway.
Well, your opponent is always evil and of the devil.
Right.
That's the assumption
Right.
that everybody has. And
Right.
that's, of course, an error of thinking as well.
Right, which was what my point was. But
I'm
you
sorry.
kept making fun of me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. But yeah, it's a lot easier if you just assume your opponent is an idiot.
Right.
And not just an idiot, but evil, motivated by bad things. You can't allow your opponent to potentially, actually be a human being that has thoughts and good intentions that may not turn out well, or he may be mistaken, but his goal is not to make the world a horrible place. It's very rare that you run across people whose goal is actually, let's destroy everything. The goal is usually, well, here's a problem. Here's what I think will solve the problem. Now, you may look at it and think, well, that's stupid. That's not going to work. You're going to have these unintended consequences. You obviously do not know enough about the subject to... But that's different than you're an evil person who is trying to destroy the fabric of reality. The evil villains that you see in superhero movies, not a common phenomenon in real life. As much as you are opposed, as much as I, being a UCLA graduate, do not think favorably of USC, I acknowledge that USC is a fine institution.
Right.
And a lot of very good things have come out. Steven Spielberg came out of USC.
We're having Facebook connection issues.
Ah, yes, a little bit.
Drink coffee, please.
I'm working. I can't talk and drink coffee at the same time.
Well, I know, but you need to stop talking and drink your coffee. Sorry, we're having some serious Facebook connection issues. We did have a comment. Dean Williamson said, it happened at 2 different schools, so previous relationship doesn't matter even if true. No, and
Well,
that
previous
was...
relationship doesn't matter, because if he violated her, then
Right,
it's that, regardless of previous.
Right, and don't get us wrong. We're not saying, well, because they had a previous relationship, it's okay they violated her.
No.
But the story there is more nuance to the story than just a transgender person in the girls' bathroom violated some girl. He's still wrong.
Right.
What he did was wrong, and it needs to be dealt with, and the laws need to be looked at more closely, because the bathroom is a scary place, especially if you're a woman,
Yes.
or if you're a small child. And so no, and don't get us wrong. Anytime a person is violated sexually, it is wrong. Whether
Yes.
it's male on female, female on male, female
Husband
on
and
female,
wife.
male on male, husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, anything like that, it's
If
always
it's
wrong.
unwanted, it's a bad thing.
My point was, those of us who oppose the transgender bathroom issue, with them just being able to use whichever bathroom they feel most comfortable in, that with the story being so on the nose, it should make you think, I wonder if the story is true. Not like, aha, see, I told you that would happen.
Yes.
Because there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of transgender people that go into the restroom of their self-identification, I don't know what you call it, of their choice, and nothing happens,
Right.
because they just need to go to the bathroom.
Yes.
So, but the thing is that you want to make places like that as safe as you can.
Yeah.
I mean, what's to keep some woman from, smacking me into the stall door and stealing my wallet, I mean, bad things can happen in the bathroom, but
Right.
you want to reduce the risk as much as possible. Most people are there because they need to go.
Yes.
And most people are not there to peek at other people. But you want to reduce the risk, just like with...
As much as possible.
Right, just like with 10-year-old boys coming into the bathroom with their moms, not appropriate because they peek. They
Yes.
do look.
Yeah. Because they're
And-
10-year-old boys.
Right, and it's super uncomfortable for those of us that are in there. So, but having raised girls, it's a scary thing to send your girls into the bathroom. And most kids, if you ask most middle schoolers where they use the restroom, they will usually tell you they wait till they get home.
Yes, a lot of them
And
do.
which is not healthy. But there's not much you can do about it. The bathroom is just a scary place.
Yeah. Until they're redesigned more like what they are in
Right.
Europe, that would probably solve a lot of the problems
Yeah,
that we have.
and it's, I had heard that, there's no male or female bathrooms, you just go in and there's like common sinks. It was no big deal. You just come out of the bathroom, you wash your hands in the sink, and you leave. There's men, women there, but it's not closed off.
Right.
So the sink is out kind of more public, but in some of the places
Yeah.
were like our bathrooms, but they were individual stalls, and they it was the women's restroom, but everything was an individual stall. So when
Right.
you were in there locked in, no one could see you, no one could do anything to you, and then you came out and you washed your hands with other females.
Right.
But there were some bathrooms kind of in public areas, kind of more touristy areas, where you went, sort of like our outhouses, where you're locked in, you come out, everybody washes their hands in the same place, but it's kind of out and everywhere.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but,
Or like what we have here at the church, where the restrooms are non-gendered, but they lock, and so just one person can go in at a time.
right. Now, at our school, we keep the doors open on our bathrooms so that it's more easily monitored from outside. But then you have to watch for the kids peeking in. And one of the girls, I nailed her this week, she was there for a legitimate question, but they were out of paper towels in the girls' bathroom, and she went over to the boys' bathroom door and asked one of the boys if he would bring paper towels out for her to dry her hands. Well, she was a little too close to the door, and I did not know why she was there. Again, nuance. And I said, hey, out of the boys' bathroom, because I thought she was just peeking in there. So she stepped back, and I know this kid. She's not a troublemaker or anything. So I said, hey, step back, get out of the boys' bathroom. And then she yells in, so-and-so, can you bring me paper towels? And then she turned to me and she said, we're out of paper towels in the bathroom. And I said, oh, okay. I said, but next time, don't go that close. Ask a boy who's on the outside to run in and get them for you. So, but then we've had kids run into the bathroom, because if you're a boy and you're being playing tag with other boys, the safest place to run is into the girls' bathroom where you're safe. But you're not safe if a teacher catches you.
Yeah.
So Dean says, Japan is just a porcelain bowl you squat over with everyone else. LOL. Yeah. I have a feeling Japan's probably updated their bathrooms. I don't know.
I don't know.
But-
Well, when I was in Israel years ago, excuse me, in one of the parks, that is, the bathrooms were non-gendered, and you'd just lock it when you went in, and it was just a hole in the ground. And it was covered with lime. It was a nasty, smelly
Gross.
mess, but that's what they had, so that's what you had to use. It was weird.
I'm not a
But
good
that was in
squatter.
a park, so
Okay.
it's not
I'm-
like if you went to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem or one of the cities, it wouldn't be like that. It's probably not like that now. This was back in the 70s. But it was just a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah. I'm not a good squatter, but I'm fine with outhouses. I've used the old wooden board outhouses where it's just a hole in a board, and you can get splinters in your tushy if you wiggle too much.
Yeah.
And then there's the wooden boards the fancy ones where they actually put a toilet seat on it. Those are the nice ones, but not in the wintertime. It's freezing cold.
Yeah.
And then all the way up to like the Andy Gump things that you use. But our middle daughter will not use an outhouse. She would sooner rupture her innards than use an outhouse.
Yep.
So, but I mean, it's not like anything's going to reach up and grab you or anything.
Probably.
But I think what
Only in
grosses
a
her
horror
out,
movie.
yeah, what grosses her out is everything's just there, and so you just
That's a
don't
ways
look.
down.
It's a ways down, and you know, if it smells bad, I get that. But most of the time, they just smell like chemicals, and it's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Reminds me
So-
of the joke somebody went to use one of those kind of things. And Nickel rolled out of his pocket into the
Oh yeah,
thing. And next thing you know, he's taking off his shirt and throwing it down the hole, taking out his wallet, throwing it down the hole, taking off his belt, throwing it down the hole, and the guy sitting next to him, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? You don't think I'm going all the way down there just for a nickel for you.
if I'm going down, I'm gonna make it worth the effort.
That's right. Anyway, sorry.
So
So anyway, red pill versus blue pill.
yes,
The blue pill is the easy road, comparatively speaking. But, at least in the Matrix, the blue pill also signified imprisonment and slavery. And it's an interesting and odd phenomenon. We talked about this a little bit last week, that is fear of freedom. Eric Fromm wrote the book Escape from Freedom, and you see it reflected even in the biblical story of the Exodus. That is, time after time, whenever the Israelites were facing a new crisis, they talked about going back to Egypt, returning to slavery, because they remembered the comfortable parts of it. We had all the food that we wanted, and blah, blah, blah. Not that that was the actual reality, but that's how they remembered it. People are comfortable in the chains that they have, at least to some extent, oddly enough, it seems. Again, because the blue pill is easier. There's less thought involved, less responsibility. You just go with the flow. And everything is what you're used to. Because the other aspect of the red pill is that it necessitates change. And people are uncomfortable with change.
sip your coffee.
It's mostly gone now. It's cold.
No, it's better than nothing because after you take a drink, your voice is better for a while.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'll be glad when this thing is all gone.
Yeah.
Assuming I'm not dying of something else. Given that I have asthma, I would assume that that's the conflict.
Yes.
So,
Dead airspace.
yes, dead airspace. We've got 10 minutes. There have been, of course, a lot of people writing about red pill versus blue pill and discussing it. because, again, like I mentioned at the very beginning, it visualizes what before was simply a thought experiment in the mind of Rene Descartes. And so it allows a wider spread of the idea. It's not just philosophy students that would discuss this at 3 in the morning and during their freshman year. It becomes something that everybody discusses during their freshman year now.
Well, and I think that's what social media has done. It has made what is true a much more widespread argument.
Right.
But the problem is that a large majority of the population doesn't want to know what's true. They just want to know that their side is right.
Right.
And anything they can find to make sure their side is right. And so it's often an effort and futility to comment on someone's wrong belief most of the time.
Because it's not an effective medium to allow correction.
And the open exchange of ideas. It's supposed to,
but it doesn't work
work that well.
Not very well.
And people just, because you can kind of be a keyboard warrior where nobody can see you. Like if I look at you face to face and go, I think you're wrong and here's why, that takes a lot more bravery.
Yeah, but people don't necessarily respond well to that either.
Right.
And it's what we see in social media to a large extent is the same sorts of reactions that you get in one-to-one.
But that wasn't my point.
Okay.
My point was you have to be a lot braver to contradict someone face to face, whereas on your keyboard, you can just say, well, you're an idiot, and this just proves it, or whatever. But it takes a level of bravery and just intestinal fortitude to look someone square in the face and say you're wrong and here's why.
Yeah. Although the best way to do it is not to say you're an idiot or you're wrong, but instead the Socratic method comes into play then. And that's where you ask questions, which leads the person to reevaluate what they thought they knew. And they oftentimes, if you do it well, they will adjust their viewpoint and not realize that you're responsible for it, which is fine. That is, if your goal is to help someone find the truth versus getting credit for fixing a problem, it works out very nicely. And of course, too, the place that ideally at least that kind of correction most commonly can happen is in a educational setting. That is, in a one-to-one with your friends, just like one-to-one on social media, correction usually doesn't work. Because people, well, for one thing, we don't do it well. We're likely to say, well, you're a stupid moron, and here's why. Well, once you've said that, they're not going to listen to anything after that. And they just are cemented into their beliefs, and they'll just yell back at you. Again, Socratic method is a wonderful technique, but it's hard to do it. And your availability of settings is limited as well. Most of the time, I choose just to ignore it. Those few occasions when I haven't, I've always regretted it because it never works well. You never get the hope for, oh, I'm wrong.
Well, let me change my views.
That doesn't happen.
That rarely happens.
Excuse me.
Okay,
Perhaps next week I'll
we
feel
should
better.
probably sign off. So this is like you're just coughing so bad.
No, not constantly.
Well, it
Just
gets
every so
worse,
often.
right? But it's getting worse. You don't have anything left to drink.
Yeah, well, we've got
We only
much
have
time.
a few minutes.
We've got 5 minutes. You can give the closing stuff.
So what's our topic next week?
Next week is
I'll just look. Don't try to talk. A rose by any other name. So we'll be discussing Shakespeare and roses and flowers. Okay, stop trying to talk. So anyway, so we will be here at 4 o'clock 4 o'clock Pacific time. next Saturday, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. We're here every Saturday except for the Saturdays that we're not. It's going to be a little peppered in November because we won't be here on the 13th. And then Thanksgiving weekend is kind of iffy. We probably won't because a lot of people are out of town anyway and doing stuff with family on that day. So even if we're home, I don't know, we'll see. But so if you subscribe to our YouTube channel or you like us on Facebook, then you'll get notified when we're going to go live. You also get notified if we're not going to go live. So in your notifications, you'll see that something came up, we can't go live, or that we are going live in a few minutes. So anyway, so watch for that. Share with your friends.
Also, if people have any ideas for a show topics,
please post it on the Mirror Darkly page if you come up with an idea during the week. If you have a question during the week, if you're not watching this live, I know some people watch it in playback because we do get views. And so if you're watching this and it's not live, go ahead and comment because we get those notifications. We can answer questions the next week or whatever. So please interact with us because that's what we want. This isn't about him and I pontificating about stuff. We want discussion. We want people to ask questions. Yeah. And when we do have interaction, it is much more fun than when we don't.
Yeah.
So anyway, we thank you for listening. Hopefully we'll see you next Saturday.
And perhaps I'll feel better by then.
Yes, and he won't
or
be
I'll be dead,
like
as the case
or
may
he'll
be.
be dead. Well, you need to live at least long enough to marry your daughter off. Not marry your daughter, that would be creepy. But marry your daughter off.
Yes.
So anyway, have a great week and happy Halloween. Oh, and time change is next week too.
Oh, it is?
Yes, time change is November 5th.
Ah.
So you get an extra hour of sleep next weekend, so you can stay up an hour later. That's what I do. Bye. And Oreo says bye. Bye.